never intended to speak about this. Not because it wasn't real, not because it lacked meaning, but because some things feel too precise to be spoken aloud. The moment you put words around them, they become smaller than they were before. They lose something in translation. They become explanations instead of experiences. And this was never an explanation, it was an experience, a slow realization that arrived without permission, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that quietly changes the architecture of your thoughts while you're busy paying attention to everything else. I noticed it long before I acknowledged it. That's the truth. The signs were there, small at first, almost invisible, the way certain conversations stayed with me longer than they should have, the way random moments kept returning to my mind without invitation, the way silence suddenly felt different. Not empty, not lonely, just occupied, as if something existed there that hadn't existed before. At first, I dismissed it. That's what I always do. I trust observation more than emotion. I trust patterns more than feelings, because feelings can be temporary, parts cannot. Parts repeat, parts reveal, parts tell the truth, even when people don't. So I watched quietly, waiting for whatever this was to fade, waiting for logic to explain it, waiting for time to prove that it was just another passing impression. But it never faded. It only became clearer. And clarity can be difficult when it points towards something you never expected to find. Most connections begin with effort. People learn each other gradually. They exchange stories, build trust, create familiarity. Everything develops in predictable stages. At least that's how it's supposed to happen. This didn't. This felt different from the start. Not because it was dramatic, not because it was intense, but because it felt strangely familiar, like recognizing a place you've never been, like hearing a song for the first time and somehow already knowing the melody. There was no logical reason for it. And that bothered me because I rely on logic. I've built my entire life around understanding cause and effect. Every decision, every action, every boundary, everything exists for a reason. Yet when it came to you, the reasons arrived after the reality, not before. And that's a dangerous thing, because once reality arrives first, your usual defenses become useless. You can't prepare for something you've already experienced. You can't create distance from something that's already inside your awareness. That's where the problem began, not with you. With me, with the fact that I kept noticing, kept observing, kept returning to the same conclusion, no matter how many times I tried to approach it from a different angle. You mattered, more than you should have, more than I intended, more than I was comfortable admitting, and the strange part was that nothing obvious caused it. There was no defining moment, no dramatic conversation, no unforgettable event, just a series of small moments that somehow accumulated into something impossible to ignore, a look, a pause, a sentence spoken at exactly the right time. The feeling of being understood before explaining yourself. Those things sound insignificant when listed individually, but together they become something else entirely. They become evidence. Evidence that something is happening beneath the surface, something deeper than either person intended, something neither person planned. I've always believed that the strongest things in life begin quietly, not with noise, not with excitement, but with certainty. A certainty so subtle that you almost miss it, until one day you realize it's been guiding your decisions for months. That's what happened here. I didn't wake up one morning and suddenly feel different. The change happened gradually, invisible at first, Then undeniable, I started measuring my days differently. Certain moments felt incomplete until they were shared. Certain thoughts felt unfinished until they had been considered from another perspective. Not because I needed validation, not because I needed agreement, but because something about your perspective had become relevant to mine. And relevance is dangerous. Relevance creates importance. Importance creates attachment. And attachment changes people. I've spent years avoiding unnecessary attachments. Not because I'm afraid of connection, but because I understand its cost. Everything meaningful requires something from you: time, energy, attention, vulnerability. No matter how carefully you manage your life, meaningful things always demand a price. That's why most people avoid depth. Depth is expensive. Service-level interactions are easier, safer, predictable. But I've never been interested in predictable. I've only ever been interested in what feels real. And reality has a way of finding you, whether you're ready or not. This found me, not suddenly, not violently, but persistently, like water finding cracks in stone, slowly, permanently, until resistance became irrelevant. The truth is, I don't know exactly when I stopped seeing you as someone separate from my thoughts. I only know that one day I noticed the change, and once I noticed it, I couldn't unsee it. You had become part of my internal dialogue, part of the way I processed things, part of the way I interpreted the world around me. That realization should have alarmed me. It should have triggered every instinct I've developed over the years, every boundary, every safeguard, every system designed to maintain control. Instead, it created something unexpected. Peace, not comfort. Peace, the kind that comes from recognizing something truthful. The kind that comes from finally seeing a pattern make sense. And that's what scared me most. Not the connection itself, the fact that it felt right. Because when something feels right, walking away becomes harder. Not impossible, just harder. You can walk away from confusion. You can walk away from uncertainty. You can walk away from mistakes. But clarity follows you. It remains long after distance has been created, long after conversations end, long after circumstances change. That's why I kept questioning myself. Not because I doubted what I was seeing, because I trusted it. And trust carries responsibility. If you're wrong, you can move on. If you're right, you have to decide what comes next. That's where I found myself, standing between recognition and action, between awareness and acknowledgement, knowing something had changed, not knowing what to do about it. Maybe that's why I've spent so much time observing instead of speaking. Observation feels safe. Speaking creates consequences. The moment you say something aloud, it becomes real in a different way. It gains weight, disparked, and direction leads somewhere. I've always preferred certainty before movement. Yet certainty never arrived in the form I expected. It didn't come as an answer. It came as repetition, the same realization appearing again and again from different angles. Every path leading back to the same place, every question returning to the same conclusion, every attempt to explain it away failing. Because some things are true whether you understand them or not. And this felt true, not because I wanted it to be, not because it benefited me, simply because every honest observation pointed in the same direction. You had become important. And importance changes everything. Once someone becomes important, every interaction carries additional meaning, not because you're assigning significance, because significance already exists. The smallest moments start feeling larger than they should. The smallest absences start becoming noticeable. The smallest details start remaining in your memory longer than logic can explain. That's when I realized something else. I wasn't resisting anymore. At some point, resistance had disappeared. I stopped trying to reduce this to something simpler, stopped searching for explanations that would make it easier to dismiss, stopped pretending it was temporary. Instead, I started allowing myself to see it clearly, exactly as it was. No exaggeration, no denial, just truth. And the truth was simple. You had become part of my life in a way I never planned. Part of my thoughts, part of my perspective, part of my understanding, not through force, not through effort, not through intention, through presence, consistent, quiet, unavoidable presence. And maybe that's why it feels different from anything I've experienced before. Because nothing was pursued, nothing was manufactured, nothing was strategically built. It happened naturally. The way sunrise happens, the way seasons change, the way certain truths reveal themselves whether you're ready or not. I keep thinking about that, about how rare it is for something meaningful to arrive without effort. Most valuable things require struggle, work, sacrifice. Yet this arrived through recognition, as if it already existed and simply waited to be noticed, as if it wasn't being created, only discovered. That's a difficult thing to explain, because discovery feels different from creation, creation feels optional, discovery feels inevitable, and inevitability changes how you view things. It removes the illusion of complete control. It reminds you that life occasionally presents realities you didn't design. Realities that ask to be acknowledged rather than managed. Maybe that's what this has always been. Not a choice, not a plan, not even a decision. Just a reality waiting to be recognized. A reality I spent far too long trying to analyze from a safe distance. A reality that eventually became impossible to ignore. And now that I've reached this point, there's only one thing left to admit. The version of me that existed before this realization is gone, not dramatically, not completely. But undeniably, something has shifted. Something fundamental. Something quiet. And quiet changes are often the most permanent because loud changes attract attention. Quiet changes reshape you from within. Before anyone notices. Before even you notice. Until one day, you look back and realize you've become someone slightly different. Someone who sees the world through a new lens. Someone who understands things they didn't understand before. Someone who can no longer return to the simplicity that existed before awareness arrived. That's where I am now. Standing in that awareness, no longer denying it, no longer running from it, no longer pretending it doesn't matter. Because it does matter, more than I expected, more than I planned, more than I can honestly explain. And maybe that's okay. Maybe not everything meaningful needs a perfect explanation. Maybe some things are meant to be experienced before they're understood. Maybe some connections exist beyond the limits of language. Maybe some truths arrive long before we have names for them. All I know is this: I tried to ignore it. I tried to rationalize it. I tried to place it into categories that would make it easier to understand. None of those attempts worked, because every path led back to the same realization. Every observation pointed toward the same conclusion. Every honest reflection revealed the same truth. You changed something, and the change remains, not loudly, not dramatically, but permanently. And whether I fully understand what that means or not, I can no longer pretend it isn't real.